Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a pretty wild question. How do vast, incredibly diverse populations actually govern themselves without, well, completely falling apart? It's a massive challenge. When you've got millions of people with different languages, cultures, and priorities, how on earth do you hold them all together in a single, functioning nation? Well, today we are exploring the brilliant, slightly complex, and sometimes messy solution to that exact problem: federalism.
Think about India for a second. What do we actually call its government? You hear different terms thrown around the news all the time. Is it the union government, a federal system, or do we just call it the central government? Now, it sounds like we're just arguing over semantics, but the answer to this actually unlocks the entire political architecture of the country.
There's this huge global paradox when it comes to federalism. Out of the 193 countries in the world, only 25 of them use a federal political system. That is a tiny fraction. But here's the kicker. Those 25 countries house 40% of the entire global population. So while it might seem like a super rare setup, it's actually the absolute go-to playbook for managing massive, sprawling nations.
To get a grip on how this all works, here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. What is federalism? 2. Two routes to federation. 3. Power sharing in India. 4. Federalism in practice. And finally, 5. The third tier.
All right, diving right into Section 1, what is federalism? The vertical division of power.
The crucial difference here really boils down to where the power lives. In a unitary system, take Sri Lanka for example, the central government hoards all the power at the top. Any local or provincial governments are completely subordinate. The center gives them power and it can take it right back. But in a true federal system, like Belgium after 1993, regional governments have independent, constitutionally guaranteed power. The central government literally cannot just order the state governments around.
So, what are the ground rules? For a government to be truly federal, it needs at least two tiers, usually a national and a state level. And here is the mind-bending part. Both of these tiers govern the exact same citizens at the exact same time. You are simultaneously a citizen of your country and your state. Because that could get super chaotic, their specific powers are hardwired into the Constitution. Ultimately, though, an ideal federal system balances on two very human pillars: mutual trust and an agreement to just live together.
To understand how these tiers avoid complete chaos, we have to talk about jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is simply the area over which someone has legal authority. Now, this can be a physical, geographical boundary, but it can also refer to certain subjects or topics. Think of it as the legal fence that keeps these different levels of government from constantly stepping on each other's toes.
Moving right along to Section 2, two routes to federation and how they're actually formed.
Nations don't all get there the exact same way. They generally take one of two routes. The first is coming together. This is when totally independent states voluntarily decide to pool their sovereignty. By joining forces, they drastically boost their security. Think the United States or Australia. The second route is holding together. That's when a massive, highly diverse country deliberately slices up its own central power between states and the national government just to keep the nation from fracturing. India, Spain, and Belgium went exactly this route.
Which brings us to Section 3, power sharing in India and its constitutional framework.
To manage the sheer complexity of governing India, the Constitution laid out three highly specific lists. The Union list delegates national survival, things like defense, foreign affairs, and banking, to the central government because you desperately need a uniform policy nationwide. Then, the state list tackles everyday realities, like police and agriculture. Finally, the concurrent list handles shared interests, where both levels can actually make laws. It's a brilliantly structured division of labor.
But here is a twist that trips a lot of people up. In holding together federations, the states aren't always treated equally. Under Article 371 of the Indian Constitution, certain states, like Assam, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, and Mizoram, actually enjoy special powers. Why? To protect the unique historical and cultural circumstances of indigenous peoples, specifically around land rights. It just goes to show that federalism isn't always about perfect symmetry. Sometimes it's about accommodating unique realities.
Let's look at Section 4, Federalism in Practice, and how you actually manage a diverse nation.
Just look at the language breakdown in India. Hindi is the largest spoken language at about 44%, but the rest of the country is incredibly fragmented linguistically. Bengali, Marathi, Telugu, Tamil, and dozens more make up the majority. This right here proves exactly why highly centralized unitary rule would be a total disaster.
You literally cannot dictate a single top-down culture or language to a population this phenomenally diverse.
When India first decided to redraw its state borders based on languages, leaders were legitimately terrified it would cause the country to break apart. But historian Ramachandra Guha makes a brilliant counterintuitive point here. Dividing the map by language didn't break the country apart, it was actually the key to keeping it whole. By giving these linguistic groups their own states and autonomy, India avoided splitting into 14 or 15 completely separate warring nations.
Now, it hasn't all been smooth sailing, obviously. Historically, the same political party ruled both at the center and in most Indian states for a long time. When rival parties finally started winning state elections, the central government would sometimes misuse constitutional provisions to just dismiss those rival state governments. It was a massive hit to the true spirit of federal power sharing.
Finally, we hit Section 5, the third tier, local government.
To really get why a simple two-tier system wasn't enough, you have to grasp the staggering scale of the country. Indian states are literally the size of major independent nations. Uttar Pradesh has a larger population than all of Russia. Maharashtra is geographically about as big as Germany. Trying to run a state that massive from a single capital is almost as crazy as trying to run the whole country from New Delhi.
So India started out in 1947 with a standard two-tier system, but that massive internal diversity created an urgent need for further decentralization. In 1992, they passed a major constitutional amendment, officially creating a brand new third tier of local government, panchayats for rural areas and municipalities for urban ones. They effectively took federalism and pushed it all the way down to the village level.
So, I want to leave you with this to chew on. Has adding this deeply local third tier of government finally perfected this massive democratic machine? Does it mean true power has actually reached the hands of the everyday citizen at the village level? Or is this grand, complex experiment of federalism still evolving today? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep questioning how the systems around you are built.